Good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Paranormal Weekend Morning Brew Show. I'm Nighthawk, your host, or one of your hosts. We're going to be bringing Dennis on here in a few moments after I do a little bit of warnings and disclaimers and, all that fun stuff that always has to be done at the beginning of any podcast. That is, unless you are basically wanting to be censored. So, the warning: FBI allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, and video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This is called the Fair Use Act and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe the copyright under Section 17 USC subsection 107 of the Fair Use Act. Okay. Now, that's also mentioned at the bottom of the screen there on that little ticker there in the red. And let's see, this series. Oh, wait a minute. I got to use my my professional voice. This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries that we will examine. Okay. I hope that was a good inside voice there. And let me see. I got one I want to read. We got to cover all the bases, people. I'm sorry, but this has to be done. Otherwise, they censor me on all kinds of forms. You all know that. Disclaimer: anything that I show, discuss, or showcase on this channel is what I must remember. Hold on. Let me start over. Anything that I show, discuss, or showcase on this channel is what I do and how I do or feel about things. I got to reword that. That's not proper English. You must remember to do your own research and decide for yourself if what you see or hear on this platform is right for you, as only you can decide for yourself. I am not a financial advisor. Thank goodness for that. I'm not a doctor. Yeah, okay. Engineer. Yeah, you don't want me building any bridges. A professional of any kind. That's why I'm an Indian chief. All I offer are ideas that you can draw from and a bit of entertainment. Thank you and God bless. And we definitely got the entertainment, covered on this one here. So, anyways, let me take that off there and have a sip of my coffee. I hope you all grabbed your coffees this morning. It's things in our wonky world are really going crazy. Especially the paranormal field. Those of you that do dabble in the paranormal field and do investigate and all that know for firsthand just how wonky it's getting. I do want to make a couple announcements. Let's continue to pray for Tracy's family and for Tracy, please. The burial of the family member that passed is today. Last night they had the viewing, and it's like anything, it's a rough thing to get through, and the actual burial is usually even rougher for that matter, because you're permanently laying to rest the body of a loved one. So it's never easy. So let's just pray for the family, continue to pray for the family, and that they will have healing. As with anything, we don't question why. Um, we don't question what decision God's made and why God has made that decision. Um, it's really not our place, as mortals. Um, and that's the one thing we have to remember is that we are all mortal. Okay. So, but if you could please keep the family in your prayers. Real quick, I want to say some shout outs to everybody. Darcy, good morning. Tombstone, how you doing? Good day, brother. Midwest Night Watchers, good morning. Jing, good morning. Melissa, good morning. Scott.
Our neighbor needs something real quick. I don't know if you can help me. She needs some wire cutters. She is moving her shit out. He is staying. She didn't even know he has a girlfriend. And she needs to cut some stuff he has wired up that belongs to her. Do you have some wire cutters somewhere?
Oh, hold on, folks. I'm going to bring Dennis on a little early. I got to deal with something real quick. Neighbors having a situation. So, 1 second. I'm going to Scotty.
Take care of that, brother.
See you.
I'll take over for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good night. It was a long night for me, another night of research. It was a great show we had last night, and I hope you got a chance to catch it. Becoming Monsters, the most famous monster of all, Frankenstein's monster. What we talked about last night was very interesting, and I think one of my favorite monsters would have to be the Frankenstein monster. He's very pathetic in many ways, and he was done kind of bad. So he had kind of a good side to him in a way, although he went about some things in a bad way. But he's a very interesting kind of a creature. And the ramifications and the morality of that story still resonate, to our times today. Although the book is almost 200 years old, it's still a story that is good even for today, especially in our modern world with AI and robotics and all this stuff that's going on. It's very interesting. To me, I think we may be rehashing the Frankenstein story, unfortunately, with our science. And the science for the human being, the human race, is a great thing, but it can be misused like all other tools. You can take a hammer and build a house. But you can also take a life with a hammer. You can kill somebody with a hammer. So it depends on what you do with your tools, whether that's for good or for bad. But our science is what is part of us. Our endeavor to learn and understand things and to make our lives hopefully better. But unfortunately, a lot of these scientists today, forget about that. They don't take into account the fact that they're trying to help us, in our endeavor. Well, did you get that straightened out there, Chris?
It's never good enough.
I was talking about the great show we had last night, Becoming Monsters, the most famous monster of all, Frankenstein monster. And it was a very good show, I think.
Oh, yep.
And the Becoming Monsters series is really taken off with me in many different ways. I like it. I like the inception of it. It's a great series, I think. I don't know what we'll get into next week or next time on it, but we'll see. But today I was going to talk a little bit about something that's been on my mind a little bit here lately. If you want to talk about mermaids and lake monsters, things in lake. I have I'm writing a book right now, William, that's called Things of Nightmare. the doorways are open. And one of the chapters is titled "They Come Out of the Water at Night." And also, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. Hopefully, when I get my video series going, I'm going to do a little bit on that too. But I've had a lot of interesting stories are connected with bodies of water and lakes and the ocean and the ocean itself. Mermaids are a fascinating study on these things. And they're so being sighted to this very day. These mermaids are. I've even seen some very interesting film. I don't know if you have, but some very interesting films that people have taken of these things. What do you think about it? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, think about Native American culture. We do have legends of water cryptids. Well, just take for instance Ogopogo, is one of them. Take for instance the water babies, which is said to
Water
be,
babies.
to be, a malevolent type of an entity that drags people into the water or coerces them toward the water to their, end of their life. There's been sightings all around the world, especially with indigenous cultures and areas. Even in the Japanese culture. So yeah, I mean, it's not far fetched to actually be able to believe that, especially if you're indigenous, that there are a certain thing called mermaids. So yeah,
No,
it's not
that's
far fetched at all.
That's another paranormal subject, William, that like giants and witches and shapeshifters, it's a worldwide paranormal phenomenon. Every culture almost, you're talking about the indigenous peoples believed in that. The European peoples, of course, did. The sailors that went to sea supposedly sighted some of these things. Some of them may have been sightings of manatees, which really have the female manatee has breasts, which she suckles young. They are mammals, and it would from a distance look kind of like a woman, and you can kind of understand how some of that might have got started, especially if you're a very lonesome sailor been out at sea for a long time. You might really take that to be something else.
You would have to be a very, very lonesome sailor to misconstrue a manatee for a beautiful mermaid.
Yeah, they're not very pretty, that's for sure. They're not going to take home any beauty contest title, that's for sure. But you could kind of see where some of that stuff might be misconstrued. But even going back to Greek mythology, the sirens, as they were called, they were beautiful women. They were like mermaids, and they would sing such beautiful songs, and they would lure men to the rocks and destroy their ships and take their lives that way. So everything that's beautiful is not good, But this stuff goes back thousands and thousands of years, and I've studied a lot of the legends of the indigenous peoples, the Native Americans, and they have a lot of water legends that are connected to streams, lakes, and all that stuff. And of course, the most famous lake monster of all is, of course, the Nessie, Loch Ness monster. But you have to wonder what are these people were seeing? What's in the water, and what's luring some people to their death, or what may be in those waters. The waters are a very unexplored place because we can't get to it very easily. You have to have special preparation to go into the water, deep into the water, to see these things. So it's another world, all by itself that we are really the aliens in. But it's a fascinating thing, and especially the water babies. I've always found that to be very interesting about the water babies.
Yeah, what's fascinating too about the water babies is, a lot of the sightings of them portray them as looking like gnomes. Now, to me, something that lives in the water would be more on the lines of a aquatic type of a creature, a cryptid, or a being, not a gnome. That's just, look at the kappa.
Hmm.
The kappa is a big one in Japan. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
but
that's like
yeah, they
the Irish legend about the kelpies, and the selkies and all
yep.
that. Some of them look like horses that actually go in the water. So a horse doesn't really belong in the water. So you're talking about magical, supernatural type creatures there when you get to that, and the mermaid
Hmm.
kind of falls in line with that a lot too. Um,
Right,
there's the,
exactly.
and we've talked about that before, William. That there seems to be, and we've talked about earth energies and all that stuff, but there seems to be a special kind of an energy attached to water, and of course, water is the thing of life. Water is a very important thing. Without it, we can't live. We can exist without it. And so much of our bodies is water. You know, so we have a distinct connection to water, whether we want to or not. And I think it has a certain power over us. Look at the power that the moon has over the tides of the ocean. You've got a very mystical kind of part of the water thing connection going on. That's very fascinating. Water is life. Without it, you don't exist. And there's a
Yep,
lot of life
exactly.
in the water, that we don't know about. I was reading about some of they drill down like thousands and thousands of feet under the shelf in the Antarctic and found life down there in water that's 40 degrees below zero. How could that exist? But it does. Life goes on, especially in water. That's sort of where the cradle of life began, in water. So there's a definite connection with, I think, a very powerful force, a very powerful energy connected with water. And and it's another interesting thing, and you know this well, how much water plays in the rituals and ceremonies of certain cultures. Even look at the Catholic Church. How do they baptize you? They baptize you. They sprinkle water on you. Water is life. It's a very interesting connection that we have, even in our religions and our religious beliefs with water. Um, I find it very interesting. Supposedly, in heaven, by the throne of God, runs the river of life. Think about that. The river of life is a harbinger of all life, the giver of life. It's interesting that this connection would be with the unknown type things that might live in there. Now, when I got into a study of the mermaids and stuff like that, I found an interesting factor that kind of runs through a lot of different cultures, but they all rack up. Why are they always women? Of course, there are mermen supposedly sighted too. Most of the time, though, it's about the women. Why is that? You know, is it because they're the givers of life too? They belong in the water. What's going on with that? Why women? What do you think about that,
Right,
William?
right. Well, I think that as with some species, especially species that we don't really recognize, um, that women are probably more likely to be the ones to be curious and wander away from their norm and their normal habit. You see it in the primates all around, around Africa, where the female ape is always the one to wander off from the main
They be
group.
more
Um,
more outgoing. They'd be more sort of outgoing
Right.
in a way.
Right. Yeah. More curious and exploring than the male counterparts. Males have always been together, oversee the safety of the whole, whereas the female has been more of a wandering type of spirit that, you know, would be more apt to, go out on its own to experience new things, and maybe that's
Kind of
why there
more,
are more females.
kind of more like the female lions in Africa. They wander more around. They're looking for
Right.
game, whereas the male stays to guard the brood there. That's very true. That makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly.
And so that would make women or the female of the species a more exploring type of being.
Mm-hmm.
They would want to explore more. That's true. So
Yep.
that would count for a lot of these females actually being seen. But the mermen are very mysterious looking too, and they're often described as not nice looking guys. They look like have like gills. They look sort of like fish heads. They're more fish related than the women look like. According to what size. I've read a lot about the Japanese mermaid sightings, the merman, the mer people, you might say. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
both sexes here. There's some very interesting stuff and the very interesting encounters they have in the waters off Japan and the Japanese Sea and all that. There's some really weird stuff going on out there.
Yeah.
And it said a lot of these things have actually supposedly come up to the sides of ships that were anchored and try to get on board the ships and all that.
Yeah.
You don't usually hear too much about that.
There is. I mean, also you have to factor into that whole scenario of them try to jump on board ship. There's all kinds of like underground structures that have been found along the waters of Japan, and most of the Asian, islands there, all the way over to the Philippines. And some of these structures have like almost like a Mayan type of a pyramid to them.
Yeah.
So, you have to wonder, are these structures the structures of the Mer people, or are they just, ancient history?
Well, looking back to folklore, there's been many instances. It's been said for thousands of years they've talked about undersea kingdoms. I think Poe was very interested in that as well. Jules Verne wrote about these things. The undersea kingdoms are legends, supposedly. And what you're talking about there, like in Japan and all that, these are supposed to be the sunken cities that the mermaids, the mer people inhabit, and they're sort of a culture unto themselves. That's very interesting thoughts. As on land, so in the sea.
Right.
It's a very interesting correlation. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thought that I had too about the whole scenario with the mermaid and all that, and the merman, is India, and I'm sure Ajing could probably answer this a little than I can, or even you, Dennis. But in India, they talk about a sunken city that one of their lived in. Now, I've always thinking, can somebody have blue skin? Okay. Well, obviously, somebody could have blue skin or aquatic color skin. They were aquatic. I've always kind of correlated the blue skin to the aquatic. And the fact that there was a sunken city, just kind of those two things kind of make me believe that maybe some of the deities India
India. Yeah.
the Indian people have are aquatic at that. That's some of the reasons for some of the symbolisms on temples and stuff are meant to be aquatic symbols.
Oh yeah. And another thing about it, William, that I find interesting about the mer people, beings or whatever name you want to give them, is they have sort of a spiritual quality to them too. They're like almost not only cryptid, but supernatural in their aspect, very spiritual aspect to them. And like you said, a direct connection with some of the actual, Hindu beliefs and all that, especially with the blue skin. Mermaids have always been described as having even a slightly tinted blue type skin in many different cultures, not just in India. So that's an interesting link, you know. And if you were an aquatic creature, you would definitely have some type of a coloring like that, because of your environment. Definitely. Oh, yeah. I think the spiritual aspect of these things is very fascinating. The supernatural aspect of it. These creatures are all physical and also kind of spiritual in their aspect. Like that was said earlier about these things coming supposedly on board ships where men are anchored. It's almost like a spiritual visitation in a way. These things appear there and try to lure them in back to off the board of the ships into the water and all that. There's very strange stories about these things. It's very interesting.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting too, to the point where if you think about it, the paranormal around water is so heightened that because Thomas talks about a friend of his in Trinidad Tobago, the marine kingdom is having actual supernatural abilities. That wouldn't be uncommon if you think about how supercharged water is in the paranormal field. How much of an energizer it is, to
and
the
then
paranormal field.
You got to think about the properties. Do you think about the properties of water, William? You can't communicate. You can't talk like you and I are talking right now in the water. So your mind would be one interesting way for you to communicate through the waves of water, the solid particles of water. So you're looking at telepathy, perhaps as one of their abilities, definitely.
Yep. I've noticed in chat too that some people are having a difficult time trying to find us on YouTube. I've stated this several times already that the reason you're having difficulty finding us is because YouTube is owned by Google. Google is real big into censorship. And they removed our channel. Okay. So all the 500 people that were subscribed to our channel now have to resubscribe to the new channel. Okay. And that is just sad and sickening that had that happened. So if you can, please resubscribe. And you will be notified. Click the bell icon so you can get notified of when a live stream is going to happen. And but yeah, you all definitely need to resubscribe in order to. And I know this, and Night Watchers, Gerald put the link for YouTube channel in chat. And guys, for everything to help out. From 500 and some subscribers down to 35. And that is all the hard work, all the frustration and all the hours, the hundreds, if not thousands of hours that were into all the research from all the programs that we have done over the last year alone, is just gone. And yeah, so it's very, very disheartening that somebody can have so much control like that. So I don't know what
it's really it's really
I agree.
it's really an affront to our freedom, that these things are taking place in this political climate that we have to exist in now. Censorship has always been an ugly thing, but it's even getting worse now. I mean, and they're doing it. They're doing it under the table, but they know they can get away with a lot of this stuff. That's why they're doing it. There's nobody calling them on
Right.
it. That's the problem.
Right. How are we doing, Scott? Yeah, and Chris, I thank you for being here. Ozzy, Sue, Stephen, it's good to see everybody here. Thomas, thank you again for all you're doing to help us out. But yeah, we're not going to get into the political aspect of discussion and all the other questionable areas
Tactics.
on YouTube. We're going to be excluding YouTube from our live streams. Into the Red Rabbit Hole will not be aired on YouTube. Into the Red Rabbit Hole will only be aired on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, and hopefully Rumble. So, but YouTube will not be having any more of my podcasts for Into the Red Rabbit Hole. And there's a reason for that, because some of the stuff is, even though I research it as best as I can, some of the stuff is questionable at best. But if you all notice that in the opening intros to all the podcasts, all those warnings and stuff that I go through, it says that you are allowed to use the forms of criticism and parody. Okay. Those are two of the main forms, along with education and, and all the other stuff. So,
And William, part of education is theory and conjecture. You have to expound upon theories, and you have to get into conjecture when you want to talk about certain aspects of research. That just goes hand in hand. That's part of education. That's the educational part of it. That's how we learn. And if you're going to fight that, you might as well fight everything, because that's what it's all about. If we don't sit around and talk about these things and get them out in the open and say maybe it's this way or maybe it's that way or could be this, could be that, that's conjecture. That's how you form theories. That's how you try to understand things. That's ridiculous that they would fight something like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I basically, what really, and I know, thank you, Katie, for saying that. That means a lot. But, you put all this effort, and I don't like to do anything half-ass. You put your hard work, effort, and the frustration of investigating and all that and researching, and having doors closed. And I know they say for every one door that's closed, 3 open, but it's not that way on some platforms. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into it. especially since we're airing on YouTube right now. I won't get into it right now, but I can't control what's going on in the chat to a point. But it is what it is. I've learned to come to grips with it. The only bad thing is I don't even know how to begin to get back all the people that we lost as far as our Weirdo Warrior family goes. And you're literally looking at hundreds of people. I've asked several times this past week for people to resubscribe. 35 did. So I don't know. It is what it is. So.
Well, you're kind of like me, William. I don't know how to put nothing less than my 100% in something when I do it, And it's really a slap in the face when it gets put back on you there, But that's the way it goes in this world, I reckon.
Yeah. On subject, lake monsters. Now we all heard of Loch Ness and Nessie. We have all heard Ogopogo, I would imagine, Okanagan. But did you all know that there are lake monsters in the Superior Lake and in Lake Erie? And
almost
William,
almost every large lake in the world has a monster story attributed to it. And if you go back in time and look at the things that existed in the water back in prehistoric times, they were monsters. There were giant snakes, giant serpents. They were awful looking things. We still find their bones to this day on these things. So as you and I both have often said many times in the past, this is a racial type memory imprinted in mankind. These things are remembered because men and women once faced these things in real life. Look at St. George and the Dragon. Look at all these different legends and stories. How could you not have lake monsters? Think about it. There's definitely something that's going to be there. And almost every large body of water has that kind of a legend attached to it. Almost every one. That includes Lake Erie, Champlain, many of the different big lakes. I live next to a very large man-made lake that was made back about, I think I might have been a year old when this lake was made. And we don't have a water monster with it yet because this man, it hasn't been around long enough. But it seems that the older the lake system is, the more it has that story of lake monsters attached to it, And we get a lot of that from the native. We get a lot of that in this country from the Native Americans because they told a lot of stories about this. And I know without a doubt, somewhere back in the past, Native Americans encountered the last remnants of dinosaurs. I know it had to be something like that, Don't you think so?
Yes, I do, Dennis. I'm trying to pull up some pictures on my phone to show you all. But I don't think you're going to be able to see them very well. But there are some photographs that I had on StreamYard. But unfortunately, you can only keep so many photographs at one time on StreamYard without deleting them and taking them off in order to do stories and stuff, different podcasts. But yeah, here's the one that I really thought was interesting. I'm not sure if you all can see that, but it is. There we go.
Looks like a
It
giant tadpole under the
is
water.
a long, looking, really, really long.
Mm-hmm.
This picture was taken in the Caribbean, apparently. So it's not an anaconda unless somebody released their anaconda to swim in the water that's that big. But I don't know anything. I don't even know if you take away the Titanoboa from the scenario. That's as big as a Titanoboa, and anybody knows anything about their prehistoric history. Titanoboa looks like it's a giant snake. It's a giant constricting snake. So, but yeah, that definitely has the looks of lines.
That's a very strange,
and I mean, you can see
very strange shape. Very strange shape to it. Yeah.
And you can follow the S of the body, the way it elongates through the water. And you can follow that to where the tip of that ends way by the boat that's in the picture. That's how.
If
see if I can
that thing
show it to you.
That thing would be huge, William. I mean, absolutely gigantic. Look at the size of the ship of the boat compared to that thing. I wouldn't want to mess with that. That thing would something that large could turn a large ship over very quickly and destroy it if it wanted to. Like whales have been known to do it in the past.
And then you got things like you got this washing up on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been in the past a lot of different strange things that have washed up on shore. Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to show you some of those pictures that I had on the phone. Getting back to a lot of the freshwater lakes, a lot of people seem to think that there's freshwater eels that have grown to enormous lengths, which is what that could be. That could be a saltwater eel that grew to an exorbitant length. And girth. I mean, the head on that thing is huge. But that may account for some small percentage of sightings, but I don't believe for one moment that it accounts for all the sightings. We have legends in my own culture that say that in order to kill, this certain lake monster, you have to have blessed arrows. And these arrows, you have to shoot an arrow at one particular spot underneath the belly of the beast. Okay. And in that spot is like one like area, probably about the size of that, to hit that arrow in the whole massive creature that's moving. And that
that's
almost makes me
very much like the story of the dragon, William. He's always got a soft scale. Dragon is covered in hard armor like scales, and it was almost impossible to kill him. But there was always right next to the up under the neck, or next to over the heart, really the chest area. There was always a soft scale. That was what you were aiming for. There's always one certain part of that beast that you got to get to take him down. Very much like in real hunting, like in hunting the buffalo or the deer, you have to hit them in the heart. You have to get them in a certain area to take them down. All hunters know this, and I think that's a very interesting correlation, that you have with Native Americans and you have with European culture in that respect. And it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to almost suppose, hey, somebody at one time or another encountered this thing, and it's the way he took it down, just like a hunter would know what to do. Uh, it makes perfect sense when you think about it that these are actual encounters that people have had and been told about, maybe around the campfires for hundreds of thousands of years, but it gets told. And that's where you find out the basis for legend and myth really began with something that was true. And
Right.
when you look back to the dinosaurs and the things that lived in this world, they were truly monsters. They looked like monsters. They acted, they were monsters. That's what they were. Really, that's the only way you can describe them.
Mm.
And a large variety of them lived in the water. And here's the interesting thing about the Loch Ness monster, along with some other type lake monsters. They don't only stay in the lake; they come out once in a while and roam around the
Yeah.
banks and the hills around there. Think
Yeah.
about that. That's scary thought too.
Yeah. You have to
I'll be
wonder
okay.
though.
I'll be okay as long as I stay out of the water. That might not help you with that.
Yeah. You have to wonder.
Well, that's like the alligators and crocodiles, and they are sort of lake monsters if you want to look at them that way. It's
Yeah.
just the other day there was a poor lady in Florida who was killed by an alligator that came out of a pond. It was after her dog. Actually, she was walking her dog, and this thing came out, tried to get her dog, got her, drug her back in the water, and killed her. They found her remains later. They captured the alligator, but these things still happen. These things, not
Right.
that far fetched. What if you ran into a giant alligator? And we have seen some alligators and crocodiles that are monstrous, 18-foot long crocodiles and alligators. That's a monster in my book.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. They had the one alligator that was measured that walked across the golf course in Florida, across an access road into a golf course, and they estimated it at over 18 feet long. So yeah, it's not unheard of to find gigantic cryptids out there, cryptid creatures out there, and even creatures that we do know that have giganticism in its genetics. It seems like everything back in the day was much bigger and badder. Whether you call it prehistoric times or not. Now,
Even the snakes,
are
even the
these?
snakes, even snakes
Yeah,
were gigantic.
yeah, and you have to ask yourself, did some of these prehistoric creatures actually survive? I mean, we have reports of megalodon being sighted all over the world. Is there something out there that some depth of the oceans that these creatures are coming up from? Did they run out of food? Are they being seen more on our side of the water than not because of food shortages and stuff underwater? And then you have to wonder, don't have to wonder what one eats. Megalodon definitely would eat meat.
And another thing, William, another thing is the pollution in the ocean is driving a lot of this stuff. I was reading just the other day, one of the worst things mankind ever invented was these plastic grocery bags. There's like millions and billions of tons of this stuff going in the ocean. It's destroying the wildlife. Like you say, they're running out of food because of this. These things may be coming up from the deeper parts of the ocean, looking for prey, to survive.
It's you have the giant squid Arthropteryx ducks that is reported to be up to 60, 80 feet long in some cases. And they got the one captured on film from the Discovery Channel episode. I think it was during Shark Week. I'm not sure though. But anyways, on film, they estimated that one at 60 feet long. That's a big squid. I mean, that's the kind of squid that could bite you in half, if not whole. Then you've got the reports of megalodon. Then you got the reports of megalodon, and you got the reports of the mermaids being seen. Maybe just maybe with the reports of the mermaids being seen is like you said with the pollution. It's just like polluting the air. I mean, the air that we breathe, how hard it is for us to breathe with the pollution. Think about how hard it would be for them in the water.
Yeah. And it's a whole lot worse now than it has ever been before in the past. And another thing is, to me, it's very interesting, is the fact that these things that might have existed, and they say that there are some unknown parts of the ocean where these things could be coming out of, these underwater cave systems. We don't know what the heck may be down there, what may exist down there. I was reading about an interesting thing that happened in the Antarctic, supposedly to a Russian team that was down there. I think they call this thing 56A or something. They gave it a name. But what it was a giant squid that had tentacles that were almost electrical-like, and it could inject an ink-like in the water, a fluid that would paralyze you. And this thing actually killed several Russian researchers, and they found it under the ice in the Antarctic. And supposedly they even got a piece of one of his tentacles, and that they analyzed and said nothing had ever been seen like this before on Earth. So it makes you wonder what it could be under the ocean. There's no telling what's down there because it's such a vast, unexplored area, especially with the underwater cave systems. And there are valleys in the ocean, just like there are valleys on land. Like we talked about the Nahanni Valley and all that are unexplored and that have strange properties to them. You gotta wonder what the heck is down there. Like we've talked about things underground. The ocean is also a vast, unexplored area. There could be anything there, and that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Now, the whole purpose of aquatic life to come to the surface, there's really only two reasons for it. Unless curiosity could be a reason, I highly doubt that. But that would be to experience fresh air or food. Those would probably be the only two reasons for a marine life to come to the surface. And that's even if one of them is even if it breathes air. Because, like sharks, as long as they stay moving and have that water flow through their gills, they can stay underwater for vast amounts of time.
And maybe some aquatic life, William, comes out of the water to breathe, like turtles. Like turtles will lay their eggs on shore and go back, to the sea. Some aquatic life breeds on land, believe it or not. They have to have land to breed for breeding purposes. Even some fish will come into more shallow water, closer up to the shore, to lay their eggs and stuff. And like the salmon, look at the salmon that return, up the rivers. These things follow a very instinctive type of actions on their part. So you're going to find them closer to land sometimes than you normally would.
Right. Yeah. And that's Chris brings up a good point here, that we know more about them than we do our own bottoms of the seas and oceans.
That's
And
very
that's true. But we have about 60%, if not more, of the planet that is covered in water. Okay, and of that percentage, 30% is so deep that we cannot explore unless it's with robotics, submersibles. Then you have the other remaining 30% of land. There's maybe 5% of the land mass our world that we know of that has been explored, okay, and mapped. The same thing goes with the ocean, and the oceans, the seas, and all that. There's maybe at the most 10% of the oceans, and that's only to certain depths. So we don't know what is under those waves. We know that when the light disappears from the surface that can be seen underwater, what lurks in those depths, those dark depths. We know a couple things, but I'll tell you one thing that doesn't lurk in those dark, deep depths, and that's me. Okay.
Definitely. I mean, you would think twice before you never know when you put your suit on and go under the water what you were going to encounter. And it could be sharks, it could be anything. Like a giant squid or like an electric eel. There are more stuff in the ocean that are dangerous than there are on land, really, in some aspects. It's a more hostile place, a more hostile environment. You'd have to be, and like I said, there again, we are the alien there. We don't really belong there. We can't really exist under there long without some help to do it.
Right.
So we're the alien. We're the intruder in these territories. And whenever that situation arises, you have to be very, very careful what you're doing because you're a stranger in a strange land. You're at a very big disadvantage. Definitely. I would be very wary, if I were to go deep sea diving or whatever. I'd be very wary. You got to be very aware. I remember I used to watch when I was a kid. I used to love to watch Jacques Cousteau. I don't know if you remember Jacques Cousteau. That guy was a big undersea explorer. Yeah, I always enjoyed his programs. He was a fascinating explorer. He ran into some very hairy situations like that, where you got around some of these stingrays and stuff, which is one that that took the life of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. He was killed by the barb of a stingray. So you got a lot more things under the water that will kill you and take your life in some aspects than you have on land. And like you, William, I think I'd rather stay in my environment on land than then go down there and face them in a different kind of a terrestrial type environment. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something to be said about the aquatic marine life, whether it's saltwater or freshwater. Somebody brought up in the chat that the one picture that I showed off of my phone was taken in Canada. That actual picture was reproduced off of a podcaster's site in Canada, I believe. that actually showed a Caribbean style boat in the background, that net fishers would use to catch fish and stuff in from net casting. So that's how I know that it's a Caribbean type of a picture. Um,
Right.
that and I don't know of any waters that are up along Canada that are that crystal clear, except for around Newfoundland. Um, but let me see here.
You know, you have a lot. You have some glacier lakes and stuff like that. That's very interesting. And like I said earlier, a lot of these bodies of water are connected with underground caverns. They may be connected. One lake may be connected to another lake. They think that may be the possibility with Loch Ness, that it has a lot of underground caverns that connect it to the sea, for that matter. So you never know what kind of a system, an ecological system you're running into there. With these different lakes, it stands to reason though, if lakes like in Canada and the Thousand Lake areas, the Thousand Islands, and all that, could be interconnected by caverns, because they got formed that way in many ways, many aspects. I'm not a geologist, but it's a fascinating thing to think about, that these things have that connection, like an
Mm-hmm.
underground railroad type of a thing going on, where you could go from one lake to another without going over land. So you would have some very
Right.
strange aquatic life for that, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that there is so many deep, dark areas of the waters that we don't have the capability of searching, at least at this point in time, and at least at what technology has been released to the public. That's not to say our military doesn't have the capability of doing some of the research, but they're too busy fighting. So um, there is a connection with megalodon, the mermaids, and all that, and even the giant squid being washed up on shore, and being seen close to the surface of water and the land. Um, there's a reason for it, and I believe wholeheartedly that, and I will further my research into this area too. I believe wholeheartedly it's the water pollution, like you said, the fact that food is not as abundant as it used to be because of the water pollution, and the fact that every now and then they need to come to the surface to breathe in order to return back to under the water. You know, like whales, like great whales. They will come up to the surface, breathe a little bit there, and go down for the longest amount of time, down in the depths of that we can't even
But
fathom.
like, but but like us, they have to have air. Eventually.
Yeah.
I would think the mermaid would be very much like that too. I would think the mermaid eventually would have to come up for air, uh, because if they're
Yeah.
part human-like things, they would definitely be that. Or mammals like the whale. The whale is a mammal like you and I are. So that's an interesting fact. And
Mm-hmm.
there are other aquatic life like the whale that has to have that air. Look at porpoises;
But
they have to have air. You know, uh,
right,
so you
anything
gotta they've got a
anything that's
connection
not a
with the air.
mammal,
Mhm.
yeah, anything that's not an air breathing mammal has to continually be moving underwater in order to breathe.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I guess their capacity to take in air is diminished to the point where they will die. Um, that's at least that's from what I've been. I very well could be wrong.
so
Um,
that's another interesting
now,
thing about
paranormal
mermaids.
laws,
Another interesting thing about mermaids, they're often described as sitting on the rocks, sunning themselves and brushing their hair. and enjoying themselves. They're actually breathing air. Okay, they're not gasping for breath. They're actually enjoying themselves. So that's what
Right.
makes me think they're mammals. They're
Right.
more mammalian type of an animal. You know.
Right. Paranormal Oz brings up, could it also be radar used by the Navy? Radar wouldn't be that case, Paranormal Oz, because radar is above ground level. So I think what you're bringing up is sonar. The fact
Sonar.
that
Yeah.
sonar, yeah. But definitely, it would definitely be a possibility. I know that in my time in the military in the Navy, that whenever we did weapons testings and stuff with sonar,
Yeah.
there was a lot of beast marine life, to say the least, up to a week afterwards. Um, that nobody ever held the Navy accountable for. Um, so yes, that is a definite possibility as far as sonar goes. Um,
Yeah, we talked before, William, that there is off the coast of Bermuda a Area 51 in the ocean that you're not allowed to get to.
yeah,
It's a big research facility owned by the United States government. It's just like the Area 51 in Nevada. You can't get next to it. They'll meet you with boats and ships and run you back off or arrest you if you're not careful. So what's going on with that?
mhm,
Why is there that aquatic research facility underwater? We don't know what's under there, by the way. It's very very unknown.
yeah,
I mean, we know more about the land Area 51 than we do know about the ocean Area 51.
yeah, yeah. And you start thinking about where some of these sightings are, with like even the megalodon and some of these lake monsters, and sea monsters. It's always usually 75% of the time around very, very cold waters, um, which almost makes you think that maybe some of these things have been in such a deep stasis of frozen, um, suspension, that because of the ice
Well,
melts and
that's kind
stuff.
of like the Japanese mermaids are often described almost reptilian type, almost like reptiles in a way, the way they're described, or like fish, uh, scaly kind of looking. It makes you wonder what kind of a being you're actually dealing with here. It's more aquatic than it is human, definitely. You know. That's true. North Carolina cryptid there got a good point. You also have many USO craft coming out of the ocean. I've often said if you were going to have a secret UFO base, that's a perfect place to do it. The ocean that'd be my pick. Uh, if you can go, if you can be extraterrestrial, you could be underwater as well. You could be definitely a good place to hide your base.
And that's something too that we need to consider too. These USOs that are being seen are they drive creatures to the surface. Is it our own government, own military with these special craft that have the ability to go through transmedias, which is
Mhm.
a form of going from one form of you know to another, driving the creature to the surface with
Oh
whatever
yeah.
they're doing. Or are these USOs extraterrestrial in nature, um, that are driving these creatures to the surface?
Or
Irregardless, there's so
or
many different.
or it could be
Go ahead.
governmental craft, secret governmental craft that we there was one came ashore in South Carolina a few weeks back during the balloon scare, which was a big hovercraft that came ashore, and many people had never seen one of those. The Navy has hovercrafts, but you never hear that much about it.
Yep. Yep. Been on them plenty of times. So, anyways, well, I mean, I don't know what anybody in this thinks. I mean, I think we've covered some pretty good on the subject of lake creatures and sea monsters and mermaids and stuff. Mermaids capable of solar and not water and air combination. I mean, do we take Wood's scenario of mermaids to a point as factual as far as breathing air? Does a mermaid, if it stays out of water, do they die, or do they somehow transform mystically or supernaturally, or or whatever? That's theory, conjecture. I mean, we can talk about that till we're blue in the face, but until we get it on video of it actually happening. And I know now there's going to be a couple people out there that are going to buy that, and put it on the internet. You might be able to CGI it, but there's no way in God's green to make it 100% viable to be believable. I mean, have
The mermaid is a very interesting fact, William, is that it goes back so many thousands of years in myth and legend. Ever since people put to sea, there have been stories of the mermaids, and if you could, but no one's ever actually come up with an actual mermaid, that you could actually go see the body of or the fossil of, and you have to wonder about that, why is it so elusive? Of course, in the ocean, you would be of a hard time catching something
not
like
all
that.
together.
If you got it in a net or something, if you brought up in a net.
That's not altogether true now, Dennis. Not altogether true.
Well, supposedly the Fiji mermaid
that was yeah. To a
that goes with what
body,
PT. That goes with what PT Barnum said, William. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. That's what the Fiji mermaid was all about.
Right. Yeah, I remember a sideshow like that.
I tell you what, the Fiji mermaid would definitely not win any beauty contest.
No, not at all. But I do remember the sideshows. I do remember the old P.T. Barnum circus when the Barnum brothers came to town, and I remember they used to have this one trailer, this big wooden trailer with the windows up high, like 9 feet off the ground. And the only way that, anybody was able to see in the trailer was if you got on your dad's shoulders as a kid and you looked through the window. And I remember they had this one trailer that was see the real live Bigfoot captured, and they had these windows up so high that no adult could peek in it unless they were on a ladder. So they had to hoist their kids up to put their kids on their shoulders and have their kids look in the windows. And here it would be a guy in a monkey suit, but it was a realistic looking kind of a monkey suit to a child, and he would pop up at the window to scare the kids, and the kids would scream and come back down on their dad's shoulders. It was hilarious. But thinking back at it now, man, what a showman what a showman P.T. Barnum was.
Oh,
I
he could
mean,
do it.
you
He
talk
could.
about Disney holds nothing on P.T. Barnum, nothing. And
And
you know, just
next to him was Ripley. I loved
yeah,
Ripley too, because he could really do some stuff too.
yeah. But P.T.
Ripley's
Barnum
Believe It
was
or
he
Not.
was the original. Yeah, P.T. Barnum was the original. I mean, he knew how to play the audience from one end to the other. He really did.
Oh yeah.
Just the sheer genius of making something and putting something in a like a train car size of a trailer, making it so the windows were so high that a parent would have to put on their shoulders in order to see in it. It was sheer genius because the child's not going to in a real big foot and a fake person in a costume, you know. So it was sheer genius. It really. It almost me
Smart.
wish that the old circuses were still around because man, what show that they put on. You know, it almost makes me sad to think that those days are far gone.
I remember well what they
Somebody
used to
can
call,
reproduce it.
which nowadays we wouldn't, as they did back in the old days when they called the freak shows, the different things, and it wasn't just odd
Yeah,
looking people, a bearded lady or whatever, but you had the guy, the blockhead guy. Remember him? That could drive nails in his head, and
yep.
you had all kind of different acts that were fascinating. That these people actually, made a living doing this kind of stuff. It was amazing,
Come
really.
come see the goat woman as she makes her goats stew.
Yeah,
Come see the yak lady. You know, I mean, come see the alligator man. Remember the alligator man with all the
yeah, oh
tattoos?
yeah, yeah. That was a good one. Yeah. Oh, you had different ones. You had the dog face boy. Remember that one? The dog face boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wolf boys. Yeah, the wolf
Mm,
boys.
yeah.
The ones with the yeah. I mean, man, those were the days, man. Those really were the days. You know,
Real
just to
showmanship.
think. Yeah, I mean, just to think that that kind of entertainment that was entertainment. I mean, that was really what it was about. Not this crap that they spew out of Hollywood now. That's not entertainment to me. Entertainment is when you can captivate an audience and you can hold that audience in the palm of your hand and you can literally make them sit on the edge of their seats to the point where they slide off and fall to the floor. That's entertainment. You know, if you have the capability of doing that, then you have the capability of doing great, great things.
And the interesting thing about it, William, is people like P.T. Barnum. He could take your imagination and use your imagination on these things. That's what it was all about. And we've often said, and I've often said this: the greatest writer in the world is the one that uses your imagination to get the story across. Your imagination can see much better than what I could describe for you, in that
Yep.
respect.
Yep.
And when you capture someone's imagination, you've really got them, right? Like you said, right in the palm of your hand. You got them where you want them. And you have a rapport that you never will have any other way when you do that, And I think P.T. Barnum was a genius at that. He definitely
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. He really was. He really was. God rest his soul. But for every genius, you have a con artist, and for everything that P.T. Barnum did correctly as the world's greatest showman, he was also a con artist. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, we have hit the hour and a half mark. So
that's like we talked about the Fiji mermaid. We might better say this since we brought the Fiji mermaid. It really was a combination of a fish with a monkey sewed onto it. That's what it really was. But it was a brilliant idea when you think about it. It was something so bizarre, you know.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think tomorrow's subject, we should continue this. I'd like to get more into the megalodon tomorrow, if we could. Um, I'm going to be pulling up some research tonight and some information, so we'll have more of a complete show and tell. So tomorrow morning's Paranormal Weekend Morning Brew Show, we will start off with the megalodon, and we will go from there and see where the paranormal takes us. Heck, we could end up talking about aliens and UFOs, or ghosts and little people. I mean,
Who knows?
elementals. We could be talking about anything tomorrow. So, but all I can tell you is where we're going to start at. Where we end up is usually off the rails. So
we'll probably get into a little bit of the water nymphs and the dryads. Maybe we'll talk some more about that. Since we're doing some water connected stuff, who knows what we'll get into?
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, everybody, I want to thank everybody for being here today, this morning. I hope you all have a very, very, very wonderful Saturday. Get out and enjoy it. I know where I'm at. You can see me wearing this and the gloves. It's cold here. It's cold. It was like 20 degrees when we woke up this morning. So, yeah, it's cold.
That's what we say, William. That's what we say about the state of South Carolina. You don't really know South Carolina because you can experience all 4 seasons in one day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, I really, really am glad you're all here. If you can heart, and share this out, please, if you guys in the chat can actually help me out and get some subscribers to the YouTube channel so we can build it back up from the 35 that we have currently back up to the 500 we had before we were shut down. I would greatly appreciate it. I almost forgot. Okay. We are going to do a giveaway of stickers. Okay. I have several stickers. And I'm getting ready to go to the post office Monday, all the envelopes and stuff from the past week. The one lake monster that we mentioned, that Native American connection in Canada, is named what? The lake monster, not the lake. What is the lake monster named?
That's a good one. All right, come on now.
Come on. I know there's people out there that know the answers. Come on. Very good, Paranormal Laws. Very good, Karen. You both are the winners. You both are the winners today. Karen and Paranormal Laws, message me on Facebook. Well, I mean, you don't have to. Go to lakotaman333@gmail.com and send me your address mailed out to you guys. So let me write that down. I'm an old man. I forget things. let me find a piece of paper. Let's see here. Okay, we have Paranormal Oz and Karen. Okay. Sticker winners. Winner,
Peterson.
chicken dinner. Okay. All right. If you can, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Okay. That way, I'll put Dennis. Okay, there is my email. And again, if there's any, witness fighting out and want to go over with me, Dennis, that's why we put these emails there. Okay. And Dennis is ghostwolfdc@gmail.com.
That's it. And also DennisWCarroll.com.
And there we go. So if you all want to, such your encounters, if you want to just discuss a certain thing that you saw that you don't want to put on here or discuss with anyone, if you want some insight, let me know, Dennis know, and we are here to help you with whatever you need. Okay. As always, please keep Tracy's family in your prayers. Today is the funeral of Calvin, and please, if you can, just keep her in your prayers and the family members, especially the mother, the father, and the surviving brother, okay, of Calvin. Calvin was an extraordinary young man. He was a exceptionally larger than average man at a young age of mere 20s. He was every bit as, so he was a bigger guy. And all kids are the apples of mom's eye. I guess it's usually a lot more difficult for mom than dad, because dads have to basically swallow the pain, and so do moms. I'm not saying they don't, but if you can, especially keep the mom in your prayers. It's not easy losing a child, and I'm a firm believer that nobody, and I mean nobody, should have to bury their child. Nobody. If this was a perfect world, I would let pets live forever and children outlive parents. If it was a perfect world, okay. Unfortunately, the world we live in is not a perfect world, everybody. It can be at times a very cold and cruel world. But if you can, we can make it a better place, at least by helping one another out and by showing that we care about one another. So keep that in mind as you go about your days today, and your days in the future. Treat people like you want to be treated, and it'll make the world a better place. So until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we will see you all in the AM, and we were going to start the topic off with Megalodon. Okay. And then we're going to go off the rails from there. So we will see you all in the morning. Thank you all very much. Like, heart, and share, and subscribe.